very much for your opening address and sending in, your statements. And it's so important that this, and for your honesty, it's so important that this goes on public record, how much we are failing children in the state. And it's like, it's so refreshing to hear that you're saying very clearly that, that the privatisation of care is very evident. And we've seen it in nursing care, we've seen it in early years, and we've seen it in this sector and big corporations and companies will chase the money. So we know there's money to be made out of it. It's, I suppose, just from reading, you're looking at other jurisdictions, that there has been full reviews of care systems, and they have made recommendations. It's shocking that we haven't. Have we ever, I suppose the questions I'd like to ask, have we ever had any independent review around the care system? Has there ever been a long-term plan around alternative care? Have we, I suppose we've been failing children since the foundation state, that the care of children were handed over to charitable organisations, and now again that we've been failing, that they're handing them over to private organisations. We can see crisis after crisis within, especially emergency care arrangements, and I think, I suppose, someone who's worked in the voluntary and community sector, as a model, it's a fantastic model alongside you. And I agree with you. I don't think TUSLA are the problem. I think it's the absolute underfunding of the whole from the Department of Children. And I think that needs to be said. I think it needs to be said very clearly that the Department of Children are accountable here to start looking after the children that are in alternative care in our state. And I suppose I would love to see how your voices have, maybe hear more about that, why you aren't included in review like in 2022, or why your voices weren't listened to, and have you any kind of, if you could see anything that could change. Like, it is a bizarre situation that you've been given SLAs to deliver a service by the state, but then you still have to fundraise to make that your services sustainable. Like, it makes no sense. When yet private organisations can come in, set their price, say what they want, and be given that same money. It's bizarre, and it's actually shameful. And I would love to see, could you maybe see if you wanted to see how it was going to change, what would your recommendations be, even if it was 3 or 2 points that you would think, this is what we think will make a significant difference that we have to do?
I think fundamentally comes back to what you said. Basically, bring everybody together who's involved in this, all of the stakeholders, the departments, TUSLA, HICWA, the service providers, both private, statutory and voluntary, together come up with what we feel are systemic failings. What is not working in this system? And what we have to do to make sure it does work and work effectively in the long term and efficiently as possible.
And Terry, would you see that as an independent review, that all you as stakeholders will come together as an independent review?
I think it should. I mean, the reviews that were carried out in the neighbour jurisdictions were basically independent reviews. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean that the government aren't involved and don't drive it, but it means you have other independent stakeholders in there who have an objective view and maybe have an expertise in addressing some of the areas, the systemic failings, how we do that. You'd obviously have people who put those plans together. But I think it has to be a collective approach. We are all working on behalf of the state. The state has asked us to work on their behalf, but don't seem to be able to actually pay us what it costs to do that work for some reason. And I mean, that's fundamental to this. Everything becomes more expensive. We have increased cost of living. If we can't even get increases through the SLAs year on year, how are we expected to pay the bills as they come in? And we're talking about, electricity and food and clothing for children, as well as maintenance of properties. There's no kind of, I suppose, account taken of that. It's a flat fee. And again, this is the state. This is not TUSLA. TUSLA can only work with what they're given.
And when you're putting in to get your SLAs with TUSLA, I'm sure you put in costings, we say staff costings, but they're coming back that you're just given a set budget, and is it just told, you have to manage that budget with this confines, and that's it?
That's basically
I suppose we get a fixed amount, and staff costs take the majority of that, and whatever is left, that's what you have to make do with. And we've been told to cut service delivery. And we are on our knees, I suppose, financially, as a sector. We, as an organisation, offered to open 2 houses, but we never got a formal response to expand back in 2022 and 23. I suppose we're coming to a juncture where a lot of voluntaries will have to shut up shop because they haven't got sufficient funds to keep the lights on and keep the doors open. And we're around 147 years. So I don't know if we'll make our 150th year.
Just to clarify, when Margaret said her organisation offered to open 2 houses with their own money.
With their own money, we
trust.
offered to buy 2 houses. All we asked for was support in converting them into residential, which would be fire doors, bringing them up to standard. And we were told no, because they don't own the buildings.
Is there who's the oversight? Like, where's the oversight about, even for costs, if you're looking at cost-benefit analysis, are the social outcomes for children taken into account when you're looking at cost? Or looking at delivery?
No, they're not. There's been no cost-benefit analysis done because, as I said earlier, you can't just compare what the privates charge per child per week, what the voluntaries charge. You've got to look, what are you getting for that money? What outcomes are you seeing for children in care? Are they in care that has a therapeutic approach? Do they have a model of care? Are their staff experienced and qualified to carry out that work? I mean, you've got to look at all of that. So it's not just 5,000 versus 6,000 a week. It's what are you getting for that money? It doesn't matter if you're paying 20,000 a week. Are you getting benefit for that 20,000 that actually justifies paying that amount? And that has to be done, because how can the state continually offer money to either us or privates or without knowing what we're actually doing for that money?
Cheap. And in other jurisdictions, sorry, Gordon, would they have would social outcomes be taken into account if there was an analysis done, a cost-benefit analysis?
Well, they'd have to be, because where it's come up in other jurisdictions, they have built that in. So they baked that in to say you've got to look and assess outcomes.
Wales are trying to make it illegal. They're moving past legislation to make for-profit not be allowed to be part of children in care. The UK have produced reports on becoming for-profit, be profit-driven, has significantly had a negative impacts on the outcomes for children. But our own ombudsman has released the Let's Get It Right report in March this year, which looks stunningly like the one from 2013. But again, focusing on the rights for children, child's voice being heard, the outcomes for children, particularly when they get to aftercare, come to the point of leaving care and ending up homelessness. So we have some reports as our own ombudsman for children has done, which are clearly pointing the way. But our state has never been focused enough, I suppose, to move beyond thinking crisis to think long-term strategic planning. If I just make the point very, very quickly, we have a different. So you'll regularly see, and you see it reported in the media, a voluntary services cost 7,000 a week, and a private will cost 8,000. It's apples and oranges because they're two completely different models. Our fee is set whether if I have 5 young people in my house, it's the same amount of money as if I've 1. And I might only have 1 because there's a very high level of need and we've agreed to closer the beds to hold. Whereas in the private sector, it's by young person. So the same 5 young people will cost over $1 million more to have for a year. But so just when people say one is 7,000, they are actually different models of funding completely.